You enter a quiet room suspended in time. The air is heavy with candle smoke and unspoken vows. Two figures stand before you, motionless, yet waiting. Their stillness feels rehearsed, as though you have interrupted a ritual that repeats itself for eternity. The man raises his hand, not in greeting, but in command, a gesture too measured to be tender. The woman, draped in green, bows slightly, one hand resting upon her womb as if to protect something unseen. Between them, silence becomes a third presence, dense, expectant, aware. A dog watches, loyal and nervous. A mirror behind them holds the truth no one dares to speak. You are reflected in it now. You have entered their secret. The candle above burns in daylight, a flame for something that has already ended or has not yet begun. You were invited here, but by whom? And for what promise or confession do they hold your gaze so still? In 1434, Jan van Eyck painted this union of wealth and mystery at the dawn of the Northern Renaissance. It was an age intoxicated by detail, when mirrors, fabrics, and light became languages of revelation. Van Eyck, a master of oil's new luminosity, turned pigment into theology. Every reflection, a whisper of the divine. This work was long believed to be a marriage portrait, a celebration of fidelity and abundance. But beneath that polished surface, scholars sensed a tension, a stillness too sharp for joy. The room is both domestic and ceremonial, half home, half altar. Every object, the oranges, the single candle, the dog, the discarded shoes, speaks with ecclesiastical precision. It is Bruges, prosperous and devout, where trade bought salvation and merchants sought heaven through mirrors and gold. Van Eyck does not paint sinners or saints, but the twilight between them, the private theatre of human covenant. And though centuries have passed, the room still breathes. It holds its secret, intact, as if time itself were under oath. The room is narrow, its light descending from a window half open, a rectangle of northern clarity slicing through the hush. Dust floats in the air like tiny witnesses. A brass chandelier hangs overhead, heavy with the weight of ritual. One candle burns though the sun floods the space, a defiance of logic, or perhaps a plea. The man, dressed in dark fur, extends his right hand toward the woman, his palm raised, fingers poised in solemn benediction or authority. His face is pale, his expression unreadable, like one accustomed to silence being obeyed. Opposite him, the woman stands in a gown of green, the color of life, yes, but also of calculation, envy, and expectation. She bows slightly, one hand upon her swelling abdomen, though her eyes betray no tenderness, only restraint, almost resignation. Between them, their hands meet like a fragile bridge. Below, a small dog looks upward, its gaze steady, as if aware of the gravity of the moment. On the floor, wooden sandals rest abandoned, suggesting that holiness has entered, or that the participants have stepped into something sacred or forbidden. Behind them, a convex mirror reflects all, even you, surrounded by 10 small medallions depicting the Passion of Christ. In that reflection stands a witness, pen in hand. The painter himself, perhaps, or the conscience of the scene. Every gesture in this room speaks in two voices, one of ritual, another of restraint. The man's raised hand, once read as blessing, could just as easily be oath or warning. His eyes do not rest on her, but past her, as if he is speaking to the law, not to love. The woman's gesture toward her womb, long mistaken for maternity, might instead conceal uncertainty, the instinctive defense of someone performing obedience before power. The mirror, round and unblinking, becomes the true heart of the painting. It sees what they do not. Around its edge, the Passion of Christ unfolds, miniature scenes of suffering orbiting this quiet domestic pact, as if divine agony were watching over human negotiation. Within its reflection stand two additional figures, one dressed in blue, the other in red. They bear witness. They complete the ritual. One of them could be Van Eyck himself, turning observation into participation, confession into craft. The candle that burns in daylight flickers for the unseen, perhaps for God, perhaps for the dead. Even the dog, emblem of fidelity, seems anxious, as though loyalty itself were trembling beneath scrutiny. This is not a portrait of harmony, but of balance, held on the edge of silence, a union that depends on the presence of witnesses, divine or human. Every brushstroke hides a question. Is this covenant sacred or social, vow or performance, faith or contract? The room does not answer. It only waits. Here, marriage ceases to be an act between two souls. It becomes a mirror of existence itself. To stand before another and bind your fate to theirs is to confront the same paradox that governs all creation, the search for unity within division, the longing for permanence in a world that decays. Van Eyck's room becomes a chapel of appearances. The sacred candle burns, though it need not. Faith persists where reason fades. In this soft northern light, even devotion is a negotiation between spirit and matter. The mirror does not lie, yet it multiplies the truth until it becomes ungraspable. To see oneself within it is to feel both omnipresent and judged, the eternal human condition. Perhaps this is why the figures seem so still, not out of peace, but out of awareness. They stand inside the paradox of being, where love must coexist with ownership and holiness with control. The scene suggests that salvation, like intimacy, requires the courage to be seen entirely. Not the body or the wealth, but the quiet contract of vulnerability before an all-seeing eye. Centuries later, the room remains untouched, its silence intact, its candles still burning in daylight. You can almost hear the rustle of silk, the faint breath behind the vow. The mirror has outlived them all, still gathering the light of strangers who dare to meet its gaze. You realize now that this is not their portrait. It is yours, for every covenant, spoken or silent, leaves an imprint on the air, and you have entered it by looking. The figures do not age because they are not people. They are the shapes of every promise ever made, and every secret kept to preserve it. The dog watches still. The candle still resists the sun. The mirror still reflects the watcher and the watched. And as you step back You sense the question echo once more through the painted air. What does it mean to be faithful, when even truth has a reflection? This was Theoria, where art reveals what words cannot. Subscribe and share.